Welcome to the Center Mid Philosopher. This episode is brought to you by Augustus Royale Fashion. Life's not black and white, it's gray, and gray is beautiful. Check out the brand below in the link. Welcome to this week's episode of the Center Mid Philosopher. We have Alec Smir with us today. Great player from Greensboro, Fusion Academy, UNC Chapel Hill, 4-year starter, drafted by FC Dallas in the MLS. Currently on loan via Minnesota United to the Colorado Switchbacks. And we're going to be having a really cool interview with him. But before we dive into that, wanted to just talk about a couple things in the world of soccer. Most recent news being the U.S. Soccer Federation's hired Matt Crocker out of Southampton. Very strong pedigree. Seems like a fantastic guy. Also worth remembering that this is a newly created position for Ernie Stewart back in the day. So I guess we're still sort of trying to figure out what that role really is going to be. And, I don't know, Zach, how do you feel about, so for this role, some of the things that are being lobbed in this position's way to fix are things like pay to play and fixing the American academy system, or does it need fixing? Or, I feel like a lot of the challenges are very American ones. And again, I don't mean for this show to take on a xenophobic tone, because I love all styles of play: Argentinian, Brazilian, the Dutch, British, Spanish. I want as much of that as we can possibly get in America. That being said, there are American challenges that are very unique to American culture, such as the pay-to-play nature of the game. Does it concern you at all, Zach, that we have looked to the British to fix that problem for us?
I'll be honest. I could be in the minority in this, but the candidate that got hired has got a really nice resume. Little bit of a younger guy. I kind of like the change personally. I think you kind of hit on some points of kind of like that American problem, right? I feel like at times pay to play, it could feel like a little old boys club, little, I know him that knows him that knows him, a little country club-esque, if you will.
Sure.
So my whole thought process was, if we can get an American coach, I think it's probably my preference in a perfect world, although I'd rather the coach just be the right man for the job. But as far as that, the technical director, I kind of like that we're kind of thinking and looking outside the box. Again, could be a minority perspective, but that's kind of my opinions on it, I would say.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe you're looking as it more of a piece of the puzzle, and maybe that is maybe we have some international flair and outlook on some of the roles, but not all of them, certainly. You juxtapose that well with maybe an American hired coach. It's just like I was reading an op-ed piece the other day about how in England they're able to get around the pay-to-play, and it's really enlightening to me that a lot of the clubs over there that have been around for 100 years at this point are subsidized by the town. It's a public institution. Like, the taxpayers pay it. And I don't think that's ever going to be the scenario here in America. And so they don't. The coaches, especially at the youth level and so forth, are essentially government workers, and they're paid by the government. And that's just not a scenario. Like, that's just a very different economic system than we're going to ever have. And I think about my children playing academy soccer. Well, it's pay to play because those coaches got to go pay mortgages, and so it's a real fight. And I don't know that pay to play is ever going anywhere unless we fundamentally change the way we view sports in this country.
It would have to be just the other side of the coin. I mean, you have the only thing I can even try to find some similarity, which it's not, but like when a new NFL stadium gets or the process of being built gets started, like sometimes that's half taxpayers' money and sometimes it's half the owner, and you'll find some situations where the county or the city just thinks it's a good idea and they make it all taxpayer fund. It definitely is it puts higher stakes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not even higher stakes for the boys and the girls that are playing, but it's the whole town's kind of economic structure around it. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think we'll get there anytime soon, but it's certainly a challenge.
Yeah. Well, thanks. And the other thing I wanted to dive into is less than 12 hours ago, me and my oldest son were sitting there watching the Chelsea Arsenal game, and Jack my oldest is 10, and he says, "Pulisic out there?" And I looked at him and I said, "Of course he's not out there. They just spent $500 million in the January transfer windows. He ain't ever getting back out there again," which is so Chelsea. He never should have gone there. I mean, it's the likes of Shevchenko and Crespo and even Drogba at times and Fernando Torres, some of the best strikers that have ever played the game in the world, have struggled to get out there. How is Pulisic, that is getting who at the time was an astronomical sum of 50-60 million pounds transfer fees, gonna start over guys that are getting paid 100 and 150 million in transfer fees? Some of whom, by the way, haven't scored a single goal in 5 months, but that's neither here nor there. But I mean, it's just this is not anything earth-shattering to uncover, but I think, aren't we sort of decidedly going that Americans probably shouldn't play for the likes of the Chelseas, the Manchester Uniteds, the Bayern Munichs, the Real Madrids, the Barcelonas? They need to go to the Newcastles and the Fulhams and best case Tottenhams, but they shouldn't be playing for clubs that are in 1 through 4. That it should be the 5 through 9 clubs.
Yeah, there's definitely an argument. I think there's a few Americans that could definitely benefit from a transfer this summer. I think it's so funny now, though, that some of those teams that you are mentioning, they're now American owned. Or American owned. So it's funny because we're talking about the dynamics of, what we won't get in our country, but then you look at the top dogs of the EPL.
I totally call them the kettle.
But it's such a I don't even know how you would describe that. It's a funny little.
There's a lesson in there somewhere.
It's somewhere. Like someone smarter than me.
We'll find it.
Figure that out. For sure.
One day.
But yeah, I think I guess it depends on the player, obviously, but Dest, I think needs a permanent home somewhere. If Leeds get relegated, there's a few Americans that I think could use a change of scenery. I like Pulisic to Newcastle. I think that's probably like kind of one I have penciled in that could still compete for one of those top 4. Might be a bit of a stretch, but hop in one of those Europa League spots potentially. Yeah, man, I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna pop out a Holland or some world beater anytime soon, but it definitely begs you to ask the question.
Well, it makes you want to go, peel the onion back or go under the hood with some of these clubs and really uncover what is your business model here? Because Chelsea at this point is almost like it's almost like an M&A model. It's like the barbarians at the gate, where it's like, we're just going to buy up all the competition and just sit them on the bench so they can't play against us.
8-year contracts.
Yeah, but it's just it's crazy. And then but I've always marveled at Real Madrid. To me, is like the total polar opposite model, in that they might acquire a big name every 30 years maybe, and then they either go massive and get the biggest in the world, and nothing can stop them, but they do that maybe twice a decade, or they get the likes of Benzema's at the time. That what a buy that turned out to be. They're the best. If you're comparing it to stock pickers, I'm not using Chelsea as my stock picker because holy smokes, it's just a quantity grab. Whereas Real Madrid seems to get these guys that are at a 6 out of 10 on their peak, on their, potential, and they ride them to 8 or 9, and then they get to 10 at year 7 of. I mean, they'll have people that are there for 7, 8, 9, 10 years that start for 8 of those years.
Yeah, Vinicius Jr., right? Like when he first came on, real raw. I saw on Twitter.
Camavinga, I mean,
exactly. Yeah, I saw on Twitter this morning. I don't think it's done, but they seem to be the favorites to land Jude Bellingham from Dortmund. So
I mean,
that's that would kind of check the box for one of those purchases.
It's like buying Amazon at $50 a share.
Yeah, and then too, it's the top. I don't know, call it 8 to 10 teams in the world. I mean, you can almost bank that they're going to have a $60 to $80 million purchase every year. Mm-hmm. So it's like I think that splash buy that you're talking about, is kind of increased financially anyway, like at the top of the top. But then Holland went to City for like 60 million pounds. So it's like, well, explain that. So again, that's when that smarter person comes in and helps us out. But yeah, man, I tend to agree.
You said that smarter person. I don't think there is that smarter person at Chelsea because the answer seems to be, it's literally like the person that's their dad it's the father of the bride and they got the wedding planner and he just green lights every idea. It's like, fireworks, do it. Like movie theater, do it. Like chocolate covered microphones, do it. Like that's basically Chelsea's model is they green light, yes, buy. And you're like, there's only but so many positions on the field, guy.
For sure.
It's not going to work.
I wonder if that's going to pivot into like, I've noticed a lot this year. I mean, Tuchel didn't have to go from Chelsea the first time, right? He just won a was that 6 months ago? He won the Champions League. And then, you give Potter a stretch of 20 games, and then Frank Lampard's there, and then you look at Leeds, right? Since they sacked Jesse Marsh, they haven't looked as good, and it's just I wonder if probably not because that's just not the way it is in the soccer world. But I wonder if managers will start to get I don't know what that bar is to actually have their influence on a team, but I wonder if this season maybe allows people to go, all right, maybe it's not the best thing to kind of rush to a fire and then now let's pivot. Let's get Pochettino. Let's get Nagelsmann. Like who's out? Who's a big name? Maybe maybe we'll see a little bit more patience. Probably not, but
yeah.
Maybe.
Like let's make an analogy. If Chelsea was a business and there was a Glassdoor review on it, it would be terrible.
Yeah,
because it is a revolving door. Your boss gets fired every 45 days, and you would just read on there that every new hire has about a 28% chance of succeeding, 50% chance of being demoted within the first year. And it's just not, I mean, who can conceive there? Who could succeed there except for Lampard and Terry? And I just hate that, like, for Pulisic, I mean, these are precious years. I mean, you start looking beyond 2026, we're going to be talking about, is it time for Pulisic to retire? I hope not, but, people are playing for a long time now, but he is burning daylight, and This is it. Like, he is probably closer. Would you agree he's closer towards the end of his career than the beginning at this point?
I think he would. I mean, as crazy as that
That's
is,
a preposterous question, but
I mean, now the USA pool is so deep.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I did think he had a pretty good World Cup, but man, if he was
he did great, yeah.
If he has a consistent run of games, right, and he's just top confidence, top level. I think back to that first 10 minutes or so in that Dutch game when he had the ball on the 12. It was just him and the goalie. It might even be sooner in than 10 minutes in, but that's what the margins are.
Mm-hmm.
The margins are that tight. I guess he would be, after that World Cup, kind of closer to the end, which that sounds so crazy to say, but it is the truth.
Well, and certainly 8-10 more years left for sure. And Pulisic, we love you, man, very much. You're an incredible player. We just want what's for the best for you. We want to see you starting and scoring 17 goals.
Where do you want to see him at?
I mean, I saw the name Atletico Madrid thrown around, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that is what I just said not to do. Maybe that is in that first 3 or 4. But I feel like that's the kind of place that like I feel like he would play for them pretty regularly. It might he maybe wouldn't get hurt every 9 games because in EPL you're getting your ankles cut off, by 2x4s, and like a guy like a Griezmann that's just been his jam.
Great counterattack. I feel like he could be a great counterattacking player, kind of his play style, and what Simeone would probably have him work rate wise. Probably be good for.
And of course, then you mentioned Newcastle. That is the perfect type of club for him. Or I don't know. I mean, I think it'd be kind of cool for him to try a different country. He did so well in Germany. He's done great in England, but maybe what you want is for our best players to just get a lot of playing time.
Yeah,
and certainly in their prime.
No doubt. We got just about a minute here. We got Alec on the other line. I'm gonna throw one at you. Put Dest on a team that you like him. Attacking fullback, maybe wing back. I don't think he's an out and out, outside defender. I think he's got to get forward a little bit. Team come to mind for you?
Geez. Well, of course, I'm jumping to who is actually potentially interested in him. We're talking a lot about Newcastle. That's just Newcastle's is emblematic of the type of club in that they're doing really, really well, and they're beating the likes of Man U, and they're in the top 4. They're in the Champions League race. So like a Dest. How I would start to organize my thinking around that question is I think he's a Champions League player. You want him in the Champions League. So you basically say what are Champions League teams that would need someone like him and where he could play and start? And it ain't Barcelona or AC Milan. Even though AC Milan hasn't been what it used to be, it's still AC Milan. And so it's just tough, You make one mistake and you're forgotten, especially on D in Italy.
Yeah.
What about you?
I don't think it would ever happen, but I just kind of think of play style, coaches, and again, if it would be the dream, he'd get the playing time. If he landed on Brighton somehow,
sure.
Again, they're so good. They have so underrated players.
Yeah.
Many underrated players. That Deserby, the coach, I think is fantastic.
Or Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I mean, you think he could walk into the Arsenal team?
Yes, I do.
I think he could.
Again, whether or not he would, whether I do or whether he would is a different thing. I mean, I think once you start getting into those just like ultra blue bloods of EPL, like the Liverpools, the Arsenals, the Man U's, that's just that's like saying, do you think Australian-born quarterback could start for the Dallas Cowboys? I mean, that's just not going to happen because that's America's team, And I feel like Liverpool, Arsenal, Man U, those are England's teams. I mean, and so, but Arsenal, I would love for an American to be on Arsenal, a regular starter for Arsenal. I feel like that's what they could use, and they'd get a great buyout, whoever they would get that could go there. That'd be a great spot for him, but whether or not he'd actually get regular minutes, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if your problem at AC Milan is solved with an Arsenal solution. However, it should be. It could be.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would be.
Yeah, I think it's a good answer. All right, well, we got Alec on the line here. We'll hop in and get on into it.
Awesome. Thanks, bud. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this week at the Center Mid Philosopher, we have Alec Smir here with us, a Greensboro soccer legend, a UNC Chapel Hill soccer legend, MLS, dominating the USL now, currently playing goalie, pretty much 4-year starter across the board at Chapel Hill. Went on to do phenomenal, which, by the way, as a goalie, especially starting as a freshman, that's absurd. I remember reading that when you were there, and there's like, there's a Greensboro guy starting as a freshman in goalie. I mean, that's just killer because, I mean, goalie's tough because there's only one. You know, there aren't 11 of them. And so congratulations to your success thus far and still trucking.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
No, awesome. So yeah, Alec, why don't you just walk us through a little bit, maybe what I didn't touch on, but you grew up in Greensboro, you played with Fusion. Just kind of bring us to date, like how you got started in soccer and, you know, the elevator pitch.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you said, grew up in Greensboro. Fusion was kind of the platform to get to UNC. For me, get to be seen in the academy, get seen in the national team scene. And then, yeah, came into UNC and, you know, got a chance early on my freshman year because of an injury to the starting guy, James Pyle at the time. And yeah, did really well and, you know, played, like you said, 4 out of the 5 years I was there. And then, yeah, I guess onto my professional career, I was drafted by FC Dallas. It didn't necessarily work out there for me. Didn't sign me after preseason. Ended up signing a homegrown kid instead. And then kind of was looking for a club and landed with Minnesota United and signed with their second team. So that was a really great spot for me. Was there all of last year. Got to play about, I think it was 8 or 9 games in the MLS Next Pro, starting with the second team, which was a really awesome experience for me. It was a great way to get, you know, professional games and, you know, be in kind of with some first team guys and get first team exposure as well. Got a chance to compete in that MLS All-Star Skills Challenge.
Yeah,
playing in the Goalie Wars, which was like an incredible experience for me, and that, you know, ended up winning it, and that really elevated me a little bit in that kind of national scene. And
that's awesome.
yeah, so now I'm here on loan in Colorado Springs, Colorado, with the Switchbacks in the USL. So I'm really enjoying it here, and yeah, that's kind of my road so far.
Very cool. We'll have to check back in with you because I'm sure you'll be continuing for many years. And thanks for crushing it for all of us, Greensboro, and making us proud, Greensboro and Chapel Hill guys. So yeah, just kind of diving into, you know, hey, if we're at the water cooler right now, I'd be asking you, who do you think should be the next U.S. men's coach?
Yeah, it's a tough question. You know, I think everything that happened with Berhalter is tough, and I think he did really well with the squad, and I think it seems like the guys trust him and like him. It seems like he's doing a good job, but I don't know. I don't know if they'll stick with him, or, you know, there's always rumors of, you know, Jesse Marsh is now, I think, available. I think that would make a lot of sense. He's had, you know,
I love
plenty,
Marsh.
like a lot of good experience all over Europe, knows how to deal with those kind of guys. And I think he's a great coach. He's really been a great American coach for all of the U.S. So I think that one makes sense for me. I've seen some crazy names thrown out there, but I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens, honestly.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd be real interested to know, obviously, what you think, but what your teammates think, and, you know, folks from Chapel Hill that you played with. Is the thinking we should try to get an American coach? Simply, again, like, I'm not saying Americans are the most dominant, you know, style of play in the world by any means, but we do have a very unique setup here. And do you think it would be helpful if they were American, just in understanding the American psyche, the American athlete? Or do you like the likes of Thierry Henry and Patrick Vieira? Or, I mean, do you feel like some international flair could help push us forward going into 2026?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's a tough question. It's like, which direction do you go? I think for me, I've always been a strong supporter of your national team coach should be of that nation. I don't know. I just feel like it makes more sense, but that's why I think for me, like, Jesse Marsh was kind of where I went immediately in that kind of coaching search. But I mean, yeah, if you have an opportunity to bring in like top tier international coaches, it's like, I don't think it'll hurt. I think, like you said, like, maybe an American coach would have a better understanding of, you know, American players, obviously, but that's where I think Jesse Marsh is a great one, because he's had that experience in Europe, and he has a really great style of play, and he seems like a very, very great coach from what I've seen and what I've heard about, you know, from players on the news, whatever. But yeah, it's a really interesting it's like there's two ways you can go. I like I said, I've always supported having an American coach
Hmm.
for the American national team. But yeah, I mean, if you can get a guy like Thierry Henry, or I've even seen Jose Mourinho's name thrown out
Sure.
there, it's like, you know, you can't go wrong. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I was so on board with us hiring Klinsman, and
Mm.
I was
Yeah,
all in on that. And that was a dumpster fire. I mean,
yeah,
it
it was.
was, and again, I played for Elmar. He's German and he's the best coach I've ever had. But man,
Yeah,
Elmar and the American teenager, not simpatico.
exactly.
I mean, just Germans in general, it's just a very different culture and it's
Hmm.
tough and there's not a lot of TLC. And I mean, you could say the American athlete's a little bit coddled and maybe we are,
Yeah.
but maybe that's kind of how it is. I mean, I don't know that a
Mhm.
German coach would do super well in the NBA.
Yeah,
There's just a lot of ego in America,
yeah,
and so you
for
got to know how
sure.
to handle that. So it's cool that you're with the Switchbacks now. I guess I didn't realize as much, and I'm super pumped to see it that because
Hmm.
the USL and the MLS are kind of two ships passing in the night, or so they're perceived. But
Yeah,
it's really cool that they're intermingling like that and sharing players. I think that's really cool.
yeah.
How I mean, can you talk a little bit about how they work together?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think for me, like when I got the chance to play in Next Pro last year with Minnesota United too, um, the coaching staff really wanted to this year to really like push me and kind of take that next step so that hopefully for next year it can be with the first team in Minnesota United.
Hmm.
So the way we thought of trying to, really step forward, get some games at a higher level would be obviously a loan to the USL, and then I'll try to come back next year for the next season.
Hmm.
So I think it was like the perfect kind of in between. Obviously, Next Pro was a great landing spot and a
Sure.
great kind of like intro to the professional world or whatever. But USL, you're competing against grown men with families and
Hmm.
kids and mortgages and stuff. So it's definitely say it's a step higher and more intense. I mean, guys are competing in and out every week, so it's been a great level and it's a great growing and learning experience for me as well to be in a new place, new coaches, new people,
Hmm.
and try to adapt to that. So, but I've loved it so far. It's been everything I've wanted for this so far.
That's awesome. And touched on what interestingly when you made the switch from college, D1
Mm.
Chapel Hill's as high as it gets
Yeah.
to MLS next and USL. What would you say struck you most about that transition in terms of style of play?
Hmm. I mean, as a goalkeeper, I think like everything's just a little quicker. Everything is technically a little more sound, and it's like you have to get those details right, or it's just not going to work.
Hmm.
And so I think just the overall intensity and speed of play is just a little bit cleaner and crisper, and like I said, faster
Hmm.
and more intense. So that was definitely a transitional period, but I think going in straight into first team preseason with FC Dallas being drafted from UNC, that really, got me just thrown in right away. And
Hmm.
yeah, there was some adjusting, but I adjusted very quickly. And obviously, it didn't work out there, but it I was ready for when I went into Minnesota, and I did really well and did well throughout the year.
Hmm.
So
Awesome. No, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, I was fascinated with that kind of stuff as you transition to different levels. I kind of
mm,
I'm always interested to hear. I've always heard the MLS it used to have the reputation as a really rough league,
yeah,
really like
of course,
even compared. You hear about guys coming over from La Liga, and they're like, man, it is like you will get taken out in
it's
this league.
extremely athletic. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think especially early days, it really used to be that way.
Mm.
And again, like um, who's the guy that's playing in LA? Puig from Barcelona. Like he's so
Mhm.
technically sound, but I don't think he's used to getting just taken down like
Yeah.
that. Do you feel like the MLS is the USL similarly rough?
Oh, of course. I mean, yeah, I might even argue it could be rougher.
Okay. Yeah.
um, but no, yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's a huge transition from college because you're not playing against guys your age. You're playing against, a whole spectrum of guys that have even been in the league for so long. I mean, when I was thrown into Dallas, you know, first couple practices, I have Matt Hedges, another UNC guy, but I mean, I don't know how old he is now, but I mean, a veteran and national team MLS guy, like, and I'm the one directing him, so it's like, it's a crazy jump for sure, but you adjust quickly, and yeah, it's very physical and very intense.
Nice. Is there kind of a little network Chapel Hill wise in the professional ranks? I mean, do you guys kind of, you mentioned Matt, do you guys hang out, or you look out for one another? Do you talk? Do you guys text? Is that a thing?
For sure. I mean, there's a ton of UNC guys, a bunch of UNC alum that are still playing.
Sure.
All the guys I actually lived with in college at UNC are all playing, so we all
Nice.
talk all the time. And we're playing them, not this game, but next game. I'm playing two of my buddies that I lived with for 4 years in college. So yeah, we keep in touch all the time, and it's exciting to go down and travel and play against them.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a huge network for sure.
Nice. Outside of playing and training all the time, do you get to watch much soccer outside of your profession? And if so, what do you watch?
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, I try to watch as much as I can. I'm a big Manchester United fan, so
Right
I watch
on.
a ton of Premier League. I know there's some on right now, but yeah, I mean, I watch as many Premier League games as I can. I try to watch. I'm a huge Messi fan, so
Sure.
every now and then I try to watch PSG. But I mean, I love watching La Liga as well, and every week I'm watching Champions League if it's on. So I always try to watch just to I mean, it's awesome to watch. So
Yeah. Did you? And so you were called into U.S. camp a time or two, and
mhm.
right? Who
Yeah.
all was there? Like, who did you play with during
Ooh.
those times?
Yeah, so I was called in to U16, U17, and U18, three camps.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of top players. Like, I'm trying to think if there's anyone you would know, but it was we were younger,
Hmm.
so I never got to be with like the Pulisic's or any of those guys.
Hmm.
But I mean, a lot of really good goalkeepers I could touch on. I'm kind of blanking on some of the names, but I mean, everyone there is kind of, the top level at that time in their
Yeah.
their career. So I mean, it's such a great experience, and I think having that right before I came into UNC, like, really prepared me to be able to step in and play my freshman year.
Yeah.
So it's a great experience and a great environment.
Where was camp then when you got, like, where were you guys?
Mostly Florida. I think all
Yeah.
three of them I was in were in Florida. It was what, Bradenton,
Hmm.
at
Sure.
that complex. So yeah, so that was super cool. Around really great coaches. Yeah,
Yeah, and again, I mean, so my younger son plays for the Fusion now.
mm, awesome.
We were just in a guy, he's 7, and we were out till 10 o'clock
Yeah,
at night. He had a like 8 o'clock game in Winston Salem in the
yeah,
thunder and rain, and so we're out there still fighting the fight.
yeah,
It's cool. I love hearing that, because I mean the Fusion. We've had a lot of great guys come through there. Gianluca Busio. Did you ever
yeah,
cross paths with him?
yeah. No, we were on the same academy team for maybe a year or so before he left.
Yeah,
And he was a young guy playing up, and I mean, he was great on the ball, very technical, and obviously he made the jump, and he's done really well.
yeah.
So it's great to see him do well, especially.
Oh yeah, and then yeah, it's great now that they don't have to go to Kansas City. We got
Yeah,
Charlotte at least now, because
of
there's
course.
kids that are. It's interesting. A guy that babysits for us is
Mhm.
on the Fusion, and he's thinking about literally living with a family in Charlotte for Charlotte
Yeah,
FC now, like going into
yeah,
ninth, 10th, 11th grade of high school, and that's really cool.
yeah. No, I
What?
went through that as well. It's a crazy, just so young. Like, do you move? Do you make? It's like, to be seen. It's so tough.
Yeah. And how were you contacted by the national team? Did they see you play with Fusion, or were you playing with some regional teams and then got noticed?
I think, well, so I was noticed with Fusion. Yeah, it was the developmental academy, so they actually had scouts at games. And I don't think that's a thing anymore now, right? That kind of folded,
Yeah.
the DA. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I know
But I mean,
it's all
yeah,
channeled through the MLS now. And so
gotcha,
it's kind of
gotcha.
a wild world. It kind of changed. COVID sort of killed the DA, but
Yeah,
all the MLS systems, so MLS is the only pure development academies, but then all the other teams like Fusion are now
Yeah.
ECNL, and those
Mhm.
siphon into the MLS academies. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
we'll
No, yeah, just got noticed through Development Academy. We had scouts at games, and I think was just performing well and got the call. So it was super exciting for me and my family, and it's an awesome,
That's
thing to
incredible.
be able to represent your country. So,
That's so
so it was
cool.
great.
That's awesome. It's it's so cool that even in Greensboro and certainly Carolina, Chapel Hill, North Carolina, there's a lot, but you made it to the top flight, so that's awesome.
Thank you,
Yeah,
thank
man.
you.
So no, I want to jump into our really fun rapid fire questions now.
Okay, see if I'm
Yeah, I
ready.
know it's gonna be awesome. So who's the best player you ever played with or against?
Ooh, that's tough. Um, Best player, honestly, I think it's Mauricio Pineda at UNC. He's with Chicago Fire right now.
Nice,
He was just all around incredible.
nice.
Like the physicality, the technical ability. I mean, I've been with guys like Gianluca Buzio, but I mean, I think he was so young at the time, and I think just in college, Mauricio was just so dominant. So I'd have to say
Nice. Um, Messi or Ronaldo? Kind of answered it
him.
earlier, but
Messi, 100%.
nice, nice. Um, and this again, I've got a few years on you, unfortunately, but Messi or Maradona?
Ooh, I mean, I have to say Messi.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's a tough question. I didn't really grow up watching Maradona,
Mhm.
so I've obviously seen the clips. But for me, I mean, I think Messi's the best in the world.
Yeah,
So
and it's it the Maradona feels like a true child of the '80s answer because it's representative of that time, just completely
yeah,
untethered, reckless. I mean, and I think that's why the Argentinians have deified him so much for how human he was, and
yeah,
his mistakes were almost as beloved as his, heroics. And
yeah,
it was like watching, a rock star mixed with a WWE wrestler with Messi. Like
yeah, yeah,
he was
yeah.
like Mighty Mouse out there that would
Oh
like.
yeah,
It's like if Mighty Mouse and Mick Jagger combined, that would have been
yeah.
Maradona.
That's a funny one.
Yeah, and it's so funny too. Just that back in the '80s it seemed like the Wild West all over the world. I mean, no one had seatbelts. People were smoking cigarettes all the time. It's just
Yeah, yeah,
and so
it's
he
true.
was a true representation of that culture. Um, Ronaldo or Ronaldo. So Cristiano
Mm.
or Il Fenomeno. Again,
Yeah.
a little. What do you think there?
So it's tough. I've always been like such a Messi fan.
I know
And I've
it
kind
hurts.
of grown to not like Ronaldo. Obviously, like he's an incredible, amazing player.
Hmm.
So I think I'm gonna go Brazilian
Right
Ronaldo with
on.
that question.
I
Yeah.
respect that. I respect that. Donovan or Dempsey?
Ooh, Dempsey.
Nice. Like it.
Yeah, I've always loved Dempsey.
You gotta love Deuce.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
plus, he's kind of like he's got a real southeast flair to his game,
Yeah.
but mixed with like I always
Mm,
love you know Donovan is Captain America, but
yeah.
Dempsey, man, he did it in the EPL. I mean,
Yeah,
and I think Donovan could have in a
for
second,
sure.
like when he had that loan at Everton, he was voted Player of the Month. I mean, he
Yeah.
torched when he was there, but
No, yeah.
no,
Two amazing
Dempsey,
players, but Dempsey has that kind of like
yeah.
swagger. I don't know what it is,
If
but
you're going into a bar fight, you want Dempsey,
for sure.
which sometimes that's what you need.
Yeah.
So again, theme of the show, and I'll ask you one for you too.
Mhm.
For the show, favorite center mid of all time, and for you, favorite goalie of all time.
Okay. Favorite goalkeeper of all time. I put him in my 11. I'm gonna say Buffon.
Right on.
So Gianluigi Buffon. I mean, he was. I remember watching the World Cup they won with my dad when I was super young,
Hmm.
and that's kind of where I like fell in love with goalkeeping a little bit. I mean, he was like they call him what Superman. Like he was just incredible.
Hmm.
So he's always been my favorite. As I mentioned, I'm a Manchester United fan. I've always loved De Gea
Hmm.
just because I've seen kind of the progression of how he came in so young and
Hmm.
like frail and kind of just not great, and
Hmm.
then how he's kind of developed. He's an interesting one now, but there was a few years there where he was just amazing.
Yeah.
So between those two, but I went with Buffon.
And how about favorite center mid of all time for just
Hmm, that's tough. So being a Messi fan, I always watched Barcelona, so I said Iniesta
Sure.
was a cool one to watch. I mean, he just always like so good on the ball, just
So
pulling the
good.
strings. So
So good.
he was a cool one. Him and Xavi and Busquets. I mean, that midfield was so fun to watch.
Arguably the best central midfield of all time.
Yeah,
Um,
probably.
all right, and then the favorite perfect 11 of all time.
Yeah. Okay, so just run down the list, I
Yeah,
guess.
and hopefully you had fun with this one.
Yeah,
It's
it like I
intended to make
said.
you up at 11 o'clock at night, like, oh,
Yeah,
because you always get to the end, you're like, oh my god, how did I not fit
I
so and so
know.
in? You're like, ah,
I
yeah,
know. It was really hard. Like there's so many different ways you could do it, or like of all time, do you go of this decade? Your
hmm
favorite players. But like I said, I went with Buffon in goal. He's just for me, just like I mean, the fact that he's still playing is like insane.
yeah,
I think he's wearing Parma.
hmm
So yeah, I've always loved him. He's always just seems like a great guy as well. Um, center. I went with a 4-3-3. Looking at it now, I probably wish I had more attackers in there, but
hey, you're a
um,
goalie. You need
yeah,
all the
right,
help you can get.
exactly.
Yeah,
Center back. This one was a tough one for me to write, but I mean, it's Sergio Ramos.
sure.
Like, I mean, because of being a Barca fan watching Messi, like, you kind of hate him, but
Oh,
like,
he's the he's the
he's just
enemy. He is
yeah,
the enemy. Yeah.
he is the enemy, and he probably has a red card or two in him a season. But I
hmm
mean, at the time, I mean, he was just like unstoppable. I mean, he's
Yeah.
such a great defender. And then next to him, center back, I went Nemanja Vidic. He was a
Ooh,
fun one for me to watch.
nice.
I just loved him. I mean, he was like fearless. He
I
just
love
would
that
like
choice.
crunch people. Yeah, and he's just a great defender. Him and Ferdinand, that pairing was so cool for
Oh yeah,
Manchester United. So
and Evra.
so I went with
Yeah.
those two at center back. Left back, I went Marcelo.
Ooh,
I
like
thought he
it.
was just. I mean, he's just a top left back of. I mean, that was an easy one for me.
A lot of
And then
Madrid
right
players.
back. Yeah, I know. Those are my two. It's tough.
Yeah.
Um, went with the Brazilian fullbacks. I went Danny Alves at right back. I always loved him, his
hmm
kind of flair, and just I mean, he's probably one of the most decorated soccer players of all time, I think.
hmm
Um, and then my midfield, I went Zidane at the 6,
hmm
Iniesta at 8, and then Maradona at the 10. So pretty
Perfect.
pretty good midfield right there. Maybe not so
Yeah.
balanced, but
Yeah.
but it was.
Hey, who
And
needs
then
that?
why not? And then my front three, ultimate front three was CR7 left wing, Pele striker, and Messi right wing. So I don't know. I
I
don't think
like
I
it.
have to explain those, but
Nope. Nope. I think that's the
so
Chat
yeah,
GPT answer.
yeah,
Literally, it
right.
is. Which is you can't argue with that. You can't argue with
I
a
know.
robot.
You can't like I was thinking like I mean Holland's killing it right now. I mean, but
Oh
it's
yeah.
just there's no one else I'd put in there right now.
Yeah. Um, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Hopefully you had fun with that. And then last one is favorite jersey of all time.
Ooh,
Hmm.
that's a tough one. There's
Mhm.
been some really cool jerseys. Um, oh, I think honestly, what was it? The South Africa World Cup.
Mhm.
There was was it Nigeria, the green one?
Sure, they are
I love
always.
that. That one was really cool. I think it was a Nike one.
Yeah, Nigeria is an
Um,
always. It's always a deep
yeah,
cut. Really,
yeah.
yeah, they've had
That's
consistently probably the most unique, um,
yeah,
unreplicated. Like
yeah.
there's nothing similar to it out there. I mean, Cameroon's had its own thing,
hmm
with just the kind of the red, yellow, green, which is
Yeah,
but um, I would say Nigeria's boldness is
yeah,
unrivaled, and they constantly invent new ways to be really unlike
yeah.
anything else out there. Well, that's a really good
That's
answer.
what came to my mind at first. It's just so unique, like you said.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'll go with that.
Awesome. Well, that's it, man. I really
Awesome.
appreciate it. I can't thank you enough for your time. And again, kind of in closing, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Alex Smir, legend out of Greensboro, UNC Chapel Hill, still crushing it out there as a professional, and no doubt you'll be still rocking it for probably a decade to come. And we'll be rooting for you, man. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. All your kind words. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. All right, my kids will be thrilled
Awesome.
that I talked to a Canterbury hero.
Of course. Yeah. Tell him I say hi.
I will, man. Thanks so much, and let's stay in touch, okay?
Yeah, of course.
All
Sounds
right,
good.
bud. All right, later. Thank you, man.
Alec. Appreciate it, man.
Tell
No
your
problem.
friends.
I will.
Yeah.
Thanks, Zach. Take care, guys.
See ya.
See ya.
All right, folks, that was Alec Smir. Thanks so much for joining us. Remember to like the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Please follow. Please send to 5 friends that maybe haven't heard of it. Please, please, please send questions, comments, and ideas for guests. We would love nothing more than to have anyone and everyone that would love to come on. We want to hear from you. Thank you so much. So staying with the theme of the show, Center Mid Philosopher, go out there and act like a center mid. Take some risks, create beauty out of chaos, support your friends, your teammates, your coworkers, your family, put some good karma into the atmosphere, maybe throw in a slide tackle or two, be a little bit mercurial, a little enigmatic, and last of all, put one on net. Enjoy life. Thank you.